Good morning. What is great, good, and real, and welcome to day, I believe it's 44 of the Do You Rules live stream experience. I am your host, Cliche Jeff. I am very serious about life today, and I'm serious about life every day. But maybe I feel like I should say today should come with a warning. If you're a little sensitive, you might not want to go through this dialogue with me today because I'm going to ask the question around how does the world view you? How does the world view you? And I think it's a really important question. And I believe that the ego sort of flares up potentially when we ask this question because a lot of what we might believe is what does it matter what people think? What does it matter what the world thinks? Because as I touched on yesterday and I've said over and over, which I believe is really relevant and powerful, no one really cares. And that's true. No one cares about you that much. They're too busy caring about themselves. But however, and in the same way, unless you're a hermit, right, and you're off the grid and fully isolated somewhere, you have an impact on the world the way the world has an impact on you. And I find it to be very selfish that you could not have a view of how the world views you and how you are impacting the world around you in all areas that you have an impact to the world around you, especially on others. Very important topic for me, very important consideration because, again, I think there's a level of selflessness that comes with the improvement space, the actualization space. What does this all mean? Because you have to ask yourself, how am I making an impact? And the only way to really measure how you're making an impact is to understand how the world is responding to you. So drop the ego. No, it doesn't really matter per se what people say or think, but there's an importance to criticism. I think criticism's important. Constructive criticism. We have to be open to the possibilities that the influence we're having in our lives is not always a healthy, positive, and conducive to growth for all. Because it isn't just about you. It's never going to be just about you. However, and in the same way, it's all about you. Red Book of Authority. What time is it? It's 4:35 at this point. Chapstick. Hydration. If we're going to consider the possibility, by the way, I found my standard pen. I was walking up the stairs after I stopped recording yesterday and felt just amazingly beautiful about life. Right at the bottom, I saw it kind of glistening. I talked about it that it was silver. The other pen, which is white, doesn't have that same kind of sheen to it. In any event, this is now the backup pen. All right. I wrote a lot of things down, but I want to drive it towards how does life view you? And in order to know how life views you, you got to really ask the question, how do you view you? Let's please, please, again, caution. No, drop the ego. Drop the thought that you are right about everything. Drop the thought that it is not your fault. Drop the thought that life is difficult for just you. Okay? How do you view you? How does life view you? I wrote some things down, some questions, right? Are you a burden in any way? Are you helpful? What is the impact you're having to the relationships around you? What is some of the criticism you might be hearing in your head or from others around you? Stop criticizing the critics and analyze how you are seen. Man, there's a power to this, right? There's a power to this. Certainly, we have to understand where we believe we are in our lives. And depending on where we believe we are in our lives, it has a direct correlation with how we believe life sees us. And really, I think most critically, what this amounts to is the impact you're having with your life on the life around you. And if, dare I say, you're more burdensome to yourself in that you aren't fully self reliant, you aren't fully self fulfilled, you aren't thoughtful about how you are caring for yourself. So if we're talking again about improvement, if we're talking that there's a possibility that there's a greater, grander version of you, then if you are a limited version, I want you are a limited version and you can't be self-sustaining in all ways that life offers you to be self-sustaining, then what impact are you having on the life around you? And then what are you critical of? And why wouldn't you be open to criticism that offers you the potentiality for growth? Why do we not acknowledge that we aren't fully self-reliant on ourselves, that there's a lot of delta in how we are living, not appreciate what that means to the people around us, and not find it within ourselves to at least at minimum come to that realization? How could you be frustrated if you're viewed in a frustrated way when you can't even support yourself in all areas that life offers you to support yourself, especially emotionally, right? Anyone, it's my belief, my opinion, me being a critic, who doesn't focus on ensuring that they are as self-supported as possible, and this generationally for me is massively deep, right? Because this is how you're 30, 40, 50 still living with your parents. It just it just is the reality. A lot of the critical nature around where this generation might be living in your mom's basement per se. I think there's a massively powerful realization to that you are and that we should at some point be fully self-sustained, self-sufficient. And I'm not even talking about self-actualized. I'm not even suggesting that you got to go be, as my wife would say to my daughter sometimes when she gets involved in things that she shouldn't be involved in or that we think she shouldn't be involved in. Don't be a freedom fighter. Don't be a freedom fighter. You understand? I'm not even suggesting that you should be this all powerful source of light for the masses. I'm just saying that if you lack the influence over your own existence in the fullest capacity that you could maximize your existence, then I question, how do you view you? How do you view yourself? How do you believe you're being viewed by the world around you? If we're going to talk about that we're energy beings, that we have the power of Creator and God in us, and that we have the power to influence our own lives, and we can't even influence ourselves enough to do the things we think we need to do, that we know we need to do, that we tell ourselves we should do on an everyday basis. Not a sometimes, not an occasionally, not when you get inspired, or not when you get frustrated, or not when you want to tell somebody go fuck themselves, or not when you want to prove somebody wrong. That all that dies out. All that dies out. And you revert back to right to where you revert right back to where you already are, which is in the space of nowhere. In the center of everything as nothing. Imagine that. And the frustration for me with this realization with a lot of us, particularly in my generation, particularly in how I was raised, particularly in the culture that is massively influential to folks who come from where I come from. It I just wonder, like, at what point do you ask yourself, am I a burden? Is my existence causing friction for others? Is my existence a nuisance? And a lot of us are more of a nuisance and a burden more intimately than we care to acknowledge. That others are constantly thinking about how you are just doing nothing. How others are constantly thinking about how you have no influence over the outcomes of your life. Think about what I'm saying. That you have no freedom. That you have the limited ability and capacity to even sustain yourself. Imagine that we're like that. And again, some of us, I said it yesterday, you're 80, 90, 100, you start to, I understand. But even if you're in your 60s, it's not very old these days. Life expectancy keeps stretching. I know people in their 30s, man, who are just lost and perplexed about, well, why does life view me this way? Why do you think life views you this way? Why do you think people are think about that too. What is the type of criticism you receive? I use the common denominator theory. If you keep hearing a lot of the same things, and you keep combating it with, no, it can't be true, and you keep believing it's not true, but you keep hearing the same thing from different sources, I don't know how credible are the sources. We could ask that. But I just asked the question, if you keep hearing the same things consistently, there got to be some truth to that. There got to be some truth to that. So again, it begs the question, how do you view you? Are you respectful enough about who you are and who you're being to see what kind of influence you have on the world around you? Are you in the way? Why are you in the way? How don't you realize you're in the way? And then how don't you remove yourself from being in the way? At minimum, can you not come to the realization that there are others in the world who worry about you and who care to see you grow and be prosperous? And we talk about the improvement space, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That food, shelter, safety, and then relationship success. Some of us don't even meet the minimum requirements for a healthy lifestyle. And again, the phases that life offers lifestyles. Physically, when you don't take care of yourself physically and you don't move and you stay in one specific space for 98% of your day and you're doom scrolling and TV screening your life away all day, every day, and you do nothing more than that. 25%, I can say this every day, 25% of people are sedentary. This includes professional workers who are home and just sit in an office and don't move. They get on the computer, they log on, log off. They don't do much to get to the computer. They don't do much when they get off the computer. They don't do much between then and when they go to sleep and wake up. They rinse and repeat and do it over again. And then I question, have you asked yourself, how do I feel about my life? How does life view me? Because a lot of how life views you is an absolute reflection of how you view yourself. It's just you don't want to come to that realization. You don't want to have that honest conversation with yourself about how you really view you because you want to subject yourself to, well, look at how life views me. It's life's fault. It's everyone around me. It's everyone who's around me. It's their fault. It's the cards I've been dealt. There's no acceptance that you put yourself into this situation, into this realization, into this life. That we could be borderline decrepit in our thought processes, in our spiritual essence, in our energy vibrations, and how we walk around in life. It's wild. It is brutally wild to me. And that we could find ourselves as people in this space more often than not, at least based off what data is suggesting, the climate and the culture that seems to surround us, the difficulty folks seem to be having with finding purpose. And that a lot of us are accepting of purposelessness. How? What has happened? What has happened that there's no coming back from, really? What is happening that you can't take a very small little step today towards being as self-fulfilled as possible? As ensuring that you could just be reliant on yourself. That's what I'm trying to really, I guess, sort of drive around the possibility of the do you rules and the impact you could have. It's the impact you could have to yourself. Are you not enough of a priority? Are you not enough of a priority to you to ensure that you are stable in all the areas that life offers you stability? Whether you agree with how the world is structured or not, there's structure to the world. There are requirements that say if you want to at least have the baseline fundamentals of life, you got to execute in these areas. And it's not life's fault that you are where you are. It's your fault. Life reveals to you what you reveal to life. Life is a reflection of who and how you view yourself. And what you choose to view or not view is your view. But your life is under your purview. There's no one else that could change it but you. All right. I wrote this down and I want to read it. And maybe it'll got some new glasses, baby. Woo! Got the Ray-Ban Metas, so I can start to take photos. I'm a tech guy. I'm a tech guy and I like tech things. So I was intrigued because I have full control and authority over my life. I can make all the decisions I need to make for myself because I don't rely on no one or anyone. I don't rely on anyone for the security of my life to a degree because I do have to perform my work functions in order to sustain the lifestyle I have, right? So again, I'm not judging. I'm not saying that I'm not reliant on certain things, but I do feel strongly that I have the authority over my life in all the ways I need to have authority over my life. I have authority over my skill set. I have a level of experience and understanding to how things work, flow, and operate that I can be a helpful reflection to a business, to people, to life. I offer value. How do you view you? How do you view you? How do you view you? And how would you express to life because life has to view you, that you offer value. What is the value you are offering life with your life? What is the value you are offering to life with your life? What is the value you're expecting from life in return for the value of your life? Do you not question this? Do you not have we stopped asking ourselves, is this not even a fundamental is this dare I even ask, is this not a fundamental question to ask? How does life view you? How do you view life? What is the value you offer? And every day that goes by where you rinse and repeat whatever it is you're doing that is either getting you nothing or something, either increases or decreases your value. Is that not logical? Is that not a reality we face? That as we deteriorate over the course of time, because that's what happens, that if you don't provide value, you become more of a burden to life. And when you're a burden to life, life offers you a burdensome lifestyle. When you're not self-reliant, when you can't rely on yourself for everything that you need to rely on yourself on in order to be fulfilled, well then, life makes it burdensome for you to feel fulfilled. Life offers you more complexities because of how you view you, life views you in return. So when you want to make a move, it only gets increasingly difficult. You can't run from that fact. You can ego deny it and critique it yourself and flip it and find an excuse. You can do that. You can even rationalize that with yourself and believe it. But you got to live with you. How does life view you? How do you view life? It's important. I wrote this down. Everyone's a critic, but what critics see, and we're talking about a critic, right? Someone who is there's a very big difference between somebody who's just reflex judging you out of just being flagrantly ignorant, and then there's a power to constructive criticism. And if you cannot be so ego driven and naive and ignorant to what life is offering you, yes, everyone's a critic, but what critics see are important. So I believe you should listen to all criticism, including from yourself. Right? How do you view you? How does the world view you? Now, we shouldn't dismiss criticism from people outside of us, the critics. And it's not all cynical. For many reasons. One being, it's likely they're not the only ones who see us like this. Common denominator. Listen to the criticism. Don't dismiss it arbitrarily. They're likely not the only ones who see us like this. And if they're not likely the only ones who see us like this, they're also not likely the only ones who can be convinced that this is who we are. So what people think doesn't matter. They don't really care. But however, people are part of the world. There's a collective. And how the collective views you, well, it has an influence over how you view you. And then ultimately, how you are rewarded in life. Whether you can become self-sustained or you become reliant. Whether you go through the pain and the struggle of constant growth and owning the freedom afforded you because you are a creature and a being of God and you have the essence of creator in you. If you decide to brighten that light, well then you'll have to suffer for that. If you decide to dim it, if you decide to run away from it and pretend like it's not there, well then you will have to suffer for that. What critics see are important. So we want to start to sort of stack the criticism and understand it and even sort of compartmentalize it. What are the areas that life does offer you criticism, right? How does life view you physically? What are the critiques there? How does life view you spiritually? What are the critiques there? Relationally, psychologically, intellectually. I was reading something the other day that a lot of people at some point, very early in their lives, very, very early in their lives, stop learning. Imagine that. What are you repeating over and over consistently with your life? How does life view you when you haven't learned anything in decades? And that the world around you has changed so rapidly. What do you expect the view of you to be when I can fast forward 10 years, I can rewind 10 years, and there's no change in you? Imagine that. That life can afford you the opportunity to change by the moment, even with simple power of choice and free will. God offers you free will right now, right now, to do something, anything, whatever you so choose to do. The complexities, those are your complexities. Those are the ones you got to live with. The burden with those complexities are the burden. It's going to be, it's burdensome and complex either way. You might critique me. Who do I think I am? This is hard. This is really hard. This is really, really hard. Try it. Try it. I'm open to criticism. Leave whatever you want in the comment section. Send me an email, text, however you can get me in the universe. Get me. Tell me. Give me whatever you got. I'm open to it. And I'm open to the possibility that it's likely very true. I'll also submit to the fact that there's a reality to what you believe is already true. And I may choose not to try to convince you otherwise. Not going to pretend as if it doesn't have an impact, that I don't process it and see it and understand it and appreciate. I give off a reflection, and the reflection I give off is significant to me. So I work on how I reflect outwardly to the world. What I project to the world, I think very deeply about. I care very deeply about. It's complex. It's burdensome. It's difficult. It weighs on me. It stresses me. It puts me in situations where I want to cry myself to sleep sometimes, where I don't want to get up sometimes, where I can lack gratitude, where I can not want to be so self-sufficient. I want to listen. You don't think I want to sometimes just decide, I just want to like let somebody else take care of me in all areas, coddle me, comfort me, stick a bottle in my mouth like I'm a baby, change my diaper. Like I don't want there's a lot of times, I don't want to even say a lot of times, I go through the emotions of, I don't really want this level of pressure. I don't want what comes with all the realities of being a self-actualized, outside of having a greater, broader impact. Like the audacity of me to think that I could impact somebody, right? Who am I? I ask that question all the time. I ask you, who am I? Who am I? Yes, I'm nobody. And working through that, massively hard. So judge me all you want. Criticize me all you. I'm open to it. How you view me is likely how the world views me. At some point, I feel very comfortable and confident that it is ultimately how I view myself too. Because why? I work on it. What are we talking about here? I put effort towards the progressive nature that allows for expansion of my self-sufficiency. Why? Because I also fear the opposite. I fear being docile. I fear being impotent. I feel being someone that is unable. I can't fathom it anymore. So that's what also keeps me inspired and motivated. There's an ease that comes with the dis-ease and the disease offered of stagnation, of stasis. And it's saying, that's not how I view myself. Because the world that's viewing me and criticizing me and judging me doesn't know what I've been through. Oh, I've been through so much. Oh, the trauma. Oh, the difficulties. Oh, the pain and the suffering. And oh my God, the world is stacked against me. And you have no idea what I had to go through because it was so complex. The world was burdensome to me. So I took the burden of the world, the pressure of the world, the frustration that the world offered me, and I just allowed it to become me. But that's not how I view me. That's just how the world views me, because the world is prejudiced and biased and against me. The world, which has no emotion and thought and feeling and care for what you really do. The world, people are difficult. People are complex. The reality of people are burdensome. Relationships are burdensome. They're difficult. They're complex. And when you offer yourself nothing and how you view you, you offer nothing in return to the relationships that life provides you. So when you offer yourself nothing and you can't offer the world nothing, everybody has a motive. Everybody's looking to gain and get something. Don't miss. We won't participate if there's no motive and no incentive. We won't participate. So imagine in the same way that when you lack motive and you lack incentive, you don't participate with your life. How does the world view you? Have you stopped participating in the game of life? That's the question. And when you're not open to criticism, and when you don't view it as constructive, and when you don't have the maturity intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually to listen, to observe, then you can't learn. And you can't also, even with confidence, dismiss what's not true. How would you know what's not true? You're too busy being defensive. Why are you so defensive? Why do we get so defensive? Because we know, although we don't say this out loud to ourselves, we know how we really view ourselves. We know what's really there. We know what's not there. And so we suppress that. We push it into our shadow. It sort of rots in our subconscious. And we start to question, why do I feel this way? When we do have a moment and we do, that consciousness bell does go off, we wonder, why do we feel this way? Why am I here? How do you view you? How does the world view you? Don't dismiss what critics say. This can teach us how we are seen, which means it can expose what we might miss, right? What critics see, the criticism, can teach us how we're seen, which can expose what we might be missing. If you know what people see in you, and there's delta, there's gaps, there's voids, and you don't agree with how they're viewing you because you have a different view of you, then why is it that way? Is the world wrong? Possibly, maybe. Are you wrong? Possibly, maybe. Do you care to fix it? I don't know. That's a burden. That's difficult. That's complex. It's also your choice. Using that as leverage, what could we be missing? What could we be missing? What could we be missing? Don't presume all critics to be subjective. Rather, view all criticism objectively, without bias, without prejudice, without emotion. Just watch. Just watch it. Just watch it, inclusive of your own self-criticism. Just watch it. If you find that difficult, because it's difficult to watch and listen and absorb how you might be viewed without responding. Imagine that. Would you be comfortable and confident? Do you have the balls to sit up on the stage of life and without being restricted? Nobody's gonna bond you or put anything to restrict you. You're just gonna sit there and listen. Do you have the balls to sit and listen and don't say a word? Simply observe what's being said objectively. Appreciate the view of you that is being delivered to you and understand what it means for you and not say a word. And take that for what it's worth. Can you do that? Can you even do that with yourself? Can you sit down with yourself and give yourself all the criticism you might need to hear without fighting it and resisting the emotional urge to dismiss it as not being valid? We can do that. I asked the question, what would be worse? If we could do this, if we could listen to the criticism that life offers of us, if we could take a peek at the view of the world that the world has of us and how we view us, what would be worse? That is false and no one cares anyway? Or that is true and you might have missed it? What would be worse? And what that comes down to is, of course, how you view you. And how you view you is an opportunity to either build upon that view or change that view. Either way, it's always going to be on you. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.